This is the Education Business Podcast for consultants and business owners providing services in schools. I'm Claire Riley, and I'll be sharing how to start, grow and scale your education business. So welcome to the Education Business Podcast. I have Ed with me again today, and we're going to talk about what it's like to work together and be married. Hopefully you're not going to find this episode too boring because we've asked a number of I want to say business owners because, well, maybe they are the founders together, but generally one of them has the idea and then they end up working together. But we've asked a number of them recently, or listened to podcasts with people doing it where maybe they argue and they don't necessarily get on, or they have big fraught moments, and we don't really experience that, so it could be a boring episode. But then again, we don't really argue in our marriage or anything like that either, do we? We're just like really yin and yang, or just opposite on the disc profile and things. But we thought they would be insightful to have this conversation, because I think especially when I think about women and some of the people who follow us or speak to me, a big goal for a lot of women is actually to retire the husband. Now you could technically say I retired Ed, but into another job, because obviously help me build a company. So let's talk, Edward, about the fact we're married and we work together. What do you love about it? What do you hate about it?
I think the big thing is because how our company we've built, right? So we've built it in a way that suits us. We built a culture that suits us and works for us. So we get that flexibility. And the great thing about that is that we get that flexibility together. So had this be a thing that Claire just did on her own and I was working elsewhere, Claire's created this thing where she could just take an afternoon off and go off somewhere. Well, I'm stuck at work. Whereas in our world now is we need time together to do some big thinking or whatever. We just take an afternoon off and off we go together, right? So I think that is the real positive about it.
Yeah.
For me. What was it? So you went negative as well?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I mean, in the last episode that we did together, we talked about how I really wanted you to leave your job. And I suppose what I didn't say was it wasn't just about the job you're in. It was about the fact that you didn't have the same level of freedom as me.
Yeah.
And that's what I really wanted you to have, because I felt free, but not free because you weren't free. So I just think it's interesting that you brought that up. But yeah, what do you find hard about working with your wife?
Not a lot.
No, me neither.
Which kind of makes it boring, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I think just going back to your point when in the opening where you talked about us being sort of very yin and yang and really complemented each other, I think, and I just think that works really well. I suppose the hardest thing I find, and this is something actually I've been working through with my coach, is keeping up with you. And I say hard, it's not like it's a terrible thing, right? Because there was a time where I would aspire to be working at your pace. And I think it's taken me a while working with various coaches to get to a place of actually, it's about my journey and I don't necessarily have to emulate what you're doing. I can go off on my own path. So I suppose that would be one thing, if I was to really kind of analyse it, that I would find harder.
But we don't really get bored of each other's company, do we? I mean, no. we do sit next to each other often now, but we're never in the same meetings really, and
no. If we're really splitting hairs about it, we'll think that it's tricky when you're sat next to me and you've got your AirPods in and you're on a meeting. You talk really loud.
So do you. You talk really loud as well. You think you don't, but that's why I put my brown noise in, because you're just chatting away, and you're in a lot more meetings than I am as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked hard to get myself out of that. I suppose that's maybe part of it as well. So we're on this journey, aren't we, where we are we're really trying to build our areas that we're good at and really make sure the foundations are super strong and also there's buildings on top. And at the same time, be able to step back more from the business or work on what's really important and then step back from the business. And I think because I'm the CEO, I'm further on in that journey. And so I suppose that's kind of unhelpful because it's not just about the personality thing catching up, it's the circumstance as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I think it goes back to, as well, tying back to the previous episode about my transitioning from a full-time role into the business is, by the nature of the delay, if you like, in that I joined later, so I was just catching up to do. And I think to the point there as well, what I said about relationships as well. You're kind of ahead, I suppose, in some ways. I think
Mm,
I've caught up now. I think, but you were ahead in terms of that element as well. So yeah,
yeah, definitely from for the production team as well because you didn't really know anybody,
no, no,
whereas I'd been part of the interview process and everything like that. Um, let's talk about the fact I'm the CEO and you're not.
that's fine. I honestly have no desire to be the CEO, so I think that's that's good. There's no battle there, is there? Uh,
No.
it's definitely your superpower and not mine. So, and I'm absolutely fine with that.
And I think there's a huge strength there as well. And I probably talked about it on the podcast before, but Ed is just such a champion of women leaders. Well, it's not really women leaders, it's any leader. It's like it doesn't matter,
No,
basically, which is the best way because I won't want to be in a leadership position just because I'm a woman. That doesn't make any sense.
hmm
But for Ed, like it doesn't matter. And obviously the other three directors are women.
hmm
Um, but I think that has a lot to do with our success as well because we really know our lanes
yeah,
and we might have had to cover some of the lanes that we're not that comfortable with in the past, but now obviously we've got the help with Shan and Bev and generally that is quite covered now.
hmm
So I think that helps when we're staying in our lanes. It works really well, doesn't it?
yeah. It does. And as an exec team, we all know who's doing what, who's in what lane, and if you need something, you need to go to the right person. Um, so yeah, that just works. I'm never trying to do the stuff Claire needs to be doing, and she's never trying to do the stuff that I need to be doing. So there's no friction there because of that.
Yeah, and it is interesting because obviously, like, I'm not bad at tech, and I can do it, but I also recognize like you like doing it,
hmm
so it's really easy for me to defer all of that,
Yeah.
and just pass all that on and not. And I remember really, I think when you first not joined the business but officially joined the business, um, sometimes people would expect me to make a decision. And I'd find myself saying a lot, well, I don't know, ask Ed what he wants.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But again, that's that thing, isn't it? About you being the present one
Mm,
for a long time. So people in the business adjusting to that suddenly. Ed's here, and actually Ed's going to make some decisions and things. So that's a bit of an adjustment for them, isn't it? But,
yeah, yeah. Oh, I knew this was going to be a short episode, because we're not going to have an argument or anything, are we? But I was reflecting, because I knew we were going to talk about this topic, and I was thinking about some of the things that the points we might bring up or talk about, and you know, I've never wished that we weren't doing this together.
mhm.
Um, when I was talking to one of the founders that I met up with yesterday, he was saying that he's invested in husband and wife teams before, and he'll never ever do that again. And I think, oh, I mean, I wouldn't want anybody to invest anyway because I I like to be in control of that. Um, but obviously we we just get on, don't we? But I've never, I suppose he's saying that from a place of couples fall out and they wish one day that they never got into business together and things like that.
Hmm.
But I've never wished that we weren't doing it together. And when you think about Education Business Club, um, I mean, I'm the one who kind of started it, but we always knew you were going to be in it in some capacity in the long run. And obviously from the beginning, you were 50-50 shareholder.
Hmm.
It was always going to be something we were going to do together again, not separately.
Yeah, and I think I wouldn't want to do this without you. I think just because we just as a team, right?
Mm,
We come as a team, really. I think I don't know. Maybe what we've got is quite a lot more rare than we realise. I
mm,
think they're probably, you know, listening to what you were saying there about somebody we're talking to. I think there obviously are people out there that in relationships that where it doesn't work. Because of their type of relationship and maybe some friction there or whatever, and sometimes that I can imagine that is complicated and messy in a business environment. Um, if that's brought to work, if you like, as well. So I think that's I think we're just very rare. Maybe we're very lucky and very rare. I don't know.
Yeah, that is funny actually, because I remember somebody that we worked with before used to work for a couple, and they used to say that they used to like have arguments across the office
Yeah.
and bring everyone in on it. And sometimes I worry, like we'll joke, won't we? We'll like rib each other a bit, and sometimes you'll see somebody's face and you think, do they know how much we're really joking? Because it's not real, because you don't know people's deeper relationship, do you? Especially when you're on teams all the time.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, we just don't have that kind of relationship, do we? So I think a lot of people will be thinking, oh yeah, but do you just like work all of the time? Do you just talk work all the time?
Mm.
I mean, do we talk work all the time? Do we limit when we do talk work and things like that?
We try. I think. I think we try and have that separation more so now. I think there was a point, wasn't there? I suppose we weren't as good as that, and it would be easy to get into something. And I think some of that came from discipline around checking Teams or checking emails and things, sort of outside of working hours, so to speak. That would you'd spot something. And I'm not saying this doesn't happen now; it still does. But if you're checking your phone and you see a Teams message and you go, oh, so and so, so and so, so and so, then before you know it, you spiral into a detailed work conversation. So I think there's a discipline there, isn't there, with that. Anyway, um, I think if you can try and remain disciplined and not bring things up, and I think I'm probably a little bit more guilty of it than you are, on balance. But sometimes I'll spot something and go, "Oh, did you know about so and so, so and so, so and so?" And actually, we don't need to be talking about that now.
Yeah, it's been a journey, and we don't say you can't talk about work in the evenings or anything like that. It's not like that. We actually do talk about work quite a bit in the evenings, but it's more balanced. I think, a couple of years ago it was very intense, but we at the time we had a lot going on. We had two really young children, and we had we'd hired a lot of people all in one go, and then there was fallout from that, as there always is in a
Mm.
high growth environment like that. Whereas the last couple of years we've done a lot of work, haven't we, to um, kind of rebuild different areas, and so it feels different as well. Um, so for me, it's not about having set times, but we have had conversations where I'm like, listen, I just don't want to think about work right now, so please don't bring it up.
Hmm.
Um, but not that much, and you've heeded that as well. But I do think having children has helped, because it's given us something else to think about and talk about. And there was a time, when Hattie was younger, when we could still have those conversations, and even to a point when May were born, because Hattie was only 2.
Mm.
But now she's 6. We can't really have that work conversation when she's
No.
there really. Occasionally in the car we might get 5 minutes, but you get interrupted all the time, don't you?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think we bring more into our lives now. There was a time when everything was just about work because we loved it so much, and it's not that we don't love it, but we got more in our lives, and we, like we're hosting Christmas, and that's taking up quite a lot of planning time, and we're doing a party for the kids, and your mum's cousin's coming over from Serbia, and it all takes a lot of planning and preparation and focus on other things. And I think um, that helps you not talk about work all the time, to put in all the other stuff.
Yeah, I think as well is that actually the way we work now as well is different in terms of our flexibility and how we've increased the kind of space we've got to take time to think and talk and things, versus when sort of pre-COVID, if you like, we were going to the office environment, which was full of people. So yes, we were going to work together. We were in
Mm,
the same office, but there was no space for conversations like that because the whole building was packed out and you couldn't. There was no space. So now we're at home together
mm.
and we have opportunities between meetings while the kids are at school and things to talk about things if we need to like that. So it doesn't overflow as much into evenings and things, does it?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's
Mm.
definitely a lot healthier. It was quite unhealthy, that really, because like you'd go straight there, I'd go do the school run, go straight in. I wouldn't really get a chance to speak to you or anything. There was nowhere to talk, and we had a lot of stuff going on really. And then one of us would go do the school run, and then the other would go home. Sometime when we had two cars, and um, then we'd have to kind of debrief on the evening, and it didn't feel that joined up, did it? Because just because we had a lot of
Yeah.
new team members as well. So, and I think
Mhm.
we take Fridays off together, don't we? And we don't always do something, but I think that just helps us to have time to say things. And sometimes it is work related, like Friday just gone. We don't work Fridays, but we spent 2 hours looking at some documents that really needed
Yeah.
to be looked at because the team really needed it. Um, and it is helpful for us to be able to have those conversations,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
like privately.
That's the thing. Yeah, in that office environment, there was no privacy, and everybody else wanted to have a conversation with you. So, and there's a it's a balance. I think that's it. It's more about balance. There's a place for that face to face in the office type stuff, but actually in
Yeah.
our positions now, we also need that time away from that as well.
Yeah. And I suppose really I've never been a fan of like
No,
having your own separate office and being separate. Um but being able to work at home like this kind of gives us that to be able to have the conversations we need to have. And I think me, especially the whole ADHD thing, like I can't work with other people
mm,
there speaking because I can't not listen to them. Yesterday
yeah,
on the train, I found it quite hard because I was writing 2 podcast episodes and the internet wasn't working and I couldn't get it to play brown noise. So it took me ages to try and write something because this guy behind me is talking about how he left the police um like a couple of months previously, and it was just too interesting. So I just could not switch off. So
hmm
environment I think helps us a
it
lot,
does. It
doesn't it?
definitely does. I think. Yeah, I think it's not, and it's not about like just to go back to your point. It's not about being locked away in our own office behind a big mahogany table. It
No.
we're still accessible, and that's very much a culture we built in the business about.
Yeah.
We're all accessible. Anyone's if you need anything at the end of a message on Teams or whatever. So, yeah, but it's important to have that space as well.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, we'll be on the town halls and we'll be in the meetings and we'll go to the office. Um so it's not about the whole I need a separate space kind of thing. It's just having space to do that. I feel like it creates more space to have those conversations so that all the conversations are not just about work because there was a time and I think we were quite stressed at that point. But then it depends what's going on in your business as well. Anything else you want to say about us working together?
Um, I don't know. I suppose if you sat listening to this thinking, could I work with my partner, my husband, my wife, etc. I guess think first about your relationship and how that already works, because I think that'll play out in your business if you're not careful. I think we've got a strong relationship and we're friends as well, so best friends. So I think
Mm.
that sort of transitions and plays out in the business as well.
Yeah, I suppose as well, like if you struggle to spend loads of time together, then it might not be a thing. And I remember, so I had a couple of businesses before I had the idea for Glass Some Secrets, didn't I, Edward? One of them, I still lived at home and I made jewellery. And I've talked about this before. And my mum was really worried about it because she thought the house would get blacklisted if I forgot to pay my tax or something. She was quite worried about that kind of thing. But
Mm.
it's fear of the unknown more than anything. So I had all of that worry. And then I obviously left teaching and I was going on supply, but I knew that I needed to start something. I was thinking maybe I'll just start something by myself. And um I wouldn't have started the businesses if it wasn't for Ed. Because I would have just been trapped in that fear and worry. And I did do
Mm.
95% of it on my own. But what he
Hmm.
said was, well, we'll do it together. And that was quite transformational for me because I was like, well, you're gonna help me instead of tell me that this is a bad idea. And that was a big thing for me. So even with some of the other businesses, like, yeah, I did it on my own. Um, but you were there for that
Hmm.
support and you didn't say like, no, it's your thing. So I think if you're in a relationship where it really is your thing and you don't really ask for or offer that support to each other, then it might not be a good idea to
Mm.
later on bring them into the business. But if you've got the relationship where it's like, oh, you're doing something cool, how can I help? That's when, well, for us, they just really just really heavenly match, really, isn't it?
Mm. And at the end of the day, either way around is fine. Whatever configuration works for you. It might be that it doesn't work for you as in your relationship to bring your partner in. That's fine. That's fine as well. It's not that you can't make it a success. Either way, really. I think it just works for us
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah. So hopefully you've not been too bored by this episode. In fact, what I wanted to just touch on before we finish, which I think is important. So obviously I talk about personal development all the time and how important it is to really build your mindset for success. And I think I've been hanging around with a lot of men recently, just because
Pardon?
all about them. But just because entrepreneurs of that level, more of them are men.
Mhm.
Um, and I have seen that maybe the men I've been around don't necessarily think about personal development as much as I do. Maybe they don't have to do as much work to already like believe that they can be successful and bring money into the life and all that kind of thing. Um, so I've definitely had to do a lot of personal development, and I know
Mm.
that. But I think one of the things that definitely has come up for us is that we both need to like keep that at the forefront, because if one of us is doing more personal development than the other, then it shows, doesn't it? And you
Mm.
start seeing differences.
Yeah, because this is one of the battles that I've had for a while. Is this whole trying to keep up with you? This thing I've got to keep up with Claire because I was concerned that the gap would widen. And I think it's taken a while to come around to this place of actually, personal development is such a wide umbrella, if you like, and this, it's about finding the things that work for you within that under that umbrella. there's tons of books, tons of podcasts, tons of all sorts of stuff you can listen to and read online, and it's about finding what you can resonate with and what works for you. And that can take time to find that, I think. And I think for a while I just tried to follow what Claire was doing, thinking in some cases I'm really not kind of gelling with it. But it worked for Claire, and that's fine. And it's also fine that it might not always work for me. Sometimes Claire might say, should listen to this, should read this, whatever, and fine, yeah, no problem. Other times, no, actually, it's not for me, but there's this other thing that I might listen to or read. So I think, yeah, it's about finding your own path, really.
Yeah, and I think we've had much better conversations since you do actively go find your what you're interested in and do that personal development aside from me saying, oh, listen to this, because then it just becomes a massive list of things. So one example is recently I listened to Measure What Matters. Was it Measure What Matters? Something else?
Yes. I don't know, you listen to about 5
No.
books a day, so...
Yeah, I do, yeah. It maybe wasn't that book, but it was a similar book. Anyway, and you listen to that one, fine. But you listen to podcasts about high performers in sports and things, don't you? Whereas that's not what I would listen to, but we have great conversations about that.
And I think in a way that's a good thing, because actually if we both just listen to the same thing, actually we'd both learn the same things.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes, and I'm not saying we're not learning the same things, but sometimes it gets kind of told, the story or the information is told in a different way, a different perspective. So you can bring a different angle on it by listening to something different. So I think that's quite a good thing as well, really, to get more coverage.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think since we've kind of had our own path and listened to more separate things, it's definitely been better. Because I mean, I'm like, you'll be listening to the book 4 weeks after me and you try to talk to me about it and I'm like, what? I listened to it on 2 times speed. That was not what I took away from it. Don't ask me about it because I can't help you.
Yep.
Yeah, anyway. So let us know if you found this episode useful. We can do more like this. Ask us questions because we'd love to cover these in the podcast, because I think it is one of the big mysteries that lots of people have questions about. Oh, how do you work together? Do you not kill each other? I do get questions like that a lot, and the answer is no. We really like it actually, and we do not kill each other. Yeah, thanks for joining me on the podcast, Ed.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Education Business Podcast. To get more information to grow your business, sign up at educationbusinessclub.co.uk.